I don't want to tell people to buy Bitcoin, right? I feel like that's a little bit kind of on the nose. It's a bit crass. I'm
Yeah.
comfortable with things like, I feel like if you learn enough about it, you'll probably want to buy it on your own. But I feel like you have to want to buy it on your own, right? You have to, if you're just doing it because someone else told you to, then you'll sell it because someone else again told you to, and you haven't really achieved anything. You probably lose money. Um, but I think there's a way of tying that in that I'd I really do want to generalize it a bit beyond, yeah, literally just shilling my own bags and number go up to maybe something like treating buying Bitcoin as indicative of, say, lowering one's time preference, right? If we want to throw out another one of our memes, um, what buying Bitcoin would achieve, you don't want to think of it as like a lottery ticket to avoid this cycle of misery and poverty or whatever. That's probably an unhealthy approach to it. You want to think of it as you want to understand that it is savings first and foremost, and that the reason that you save is to, actually, I'm not even sure how to conclude that. This is getting a little bit more kind of philosophical than I was maybe intending when I started the ramble.
Do
But
it.
just
Yeah.
you want to lower your time preference, basically. Like, you want this to be part of improving your overall standing in life, right? And ideally as paired with building skills that enable you to add value for others, such that you can start to be more independent, start to have somewhat sustainable sources of income, which potentially then go towards buying more Bitcoin, and so on and so forth. And again, your audience doesn't need this as advice. I'm trying to think how to best conceptualize all of this other than just saying buy Bitcoin. But back to your point about what do you do about it, I think the more you can encourage this at the micro level, the less we'll see of exactly the kind of problem that you're identifying. Because again, I really do have sympathy for someone who, especially if they've wrapped it up in all this kind of emotional, frankly, nonsense about how good a person they are. But ultimately, it's somewhat materialistic in that it's derived from, they literally can't afford anything, right? Like the situation that the combination of fiat and socialism has caused for them is they will never own a home. They'll be paid shit wages because nobody can be bothered starting a business and accumulating any capital in the first place to enable them to generate any income from the productivity of their labor. And then in the meantime, real estate is monetized, so they can't afford anything. So they just feel like they're on a hamster wheel. They'll never get off, and they've identified the fake boogeyman of capitalism. Like, whatever. None of this is permanent, and it's not permanent at the macro level, but at the micro level of the individual making the decision. If you can encourage the shift in mindset, as opposed to necessarily treating it as like you need to change their entire worldview, right? Like, you need to give them a new philosophy of economics and politics and whatever else. You can chip away in a healthier fashion by just trying to change their way of thinking and their day-to-day actions. I think that's the bull case, that route is both preferable, but I think more easily achievable as well.
I think that's fair, and I would agree with that. To play devil's advocate to it, I would say, it's difficult to get people to, if we're saying, starting from, okay, if you start to understand Bitcoin, you start to understand why savings is important, and you lower your time preference, that you're actually, you realize the reason for savings, right, at a fundamental
Mhm.
level, that can ultimately lead to these other changes in your belief structure, right?
Mhm.
Because some of them necessarily follow from that shift in mentality around what is saving, what is Bitcoin, what is money. I think part of the problem, more broadly, and again, I agree with that thesis of yours, and I know it's been true for me in terms of my own journey down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, probably true for a lot of people listening to this, that learning about Bitcoin and maybe just coming for the number go up, coming for that initial
Mhm.
part of
Mhm.
like, I want to have more money, and then
Mhm.
going down that rabbit hole and learning more. That's a journey so many have taken, myself included. I think part of the difficulty is that it's, maybe Bitcoin number go up just doesn't seem, maybe the number doesn't go up enough for people. Like they're
Yeah,
looking for
yeah,
like,
maybe. So we do need
I need
to
a
scale it
10x
fast.
return by
That's what we're
tomorrow.
saying.
Like,
We
you know
need
what I
to
mean?
go
Like,
hard.
so it's so hard to start, trying to get people to understand the lowering of the time preference, the inclination towards savings, why Bitcoin is such a perfect vehicle for savings when it's like, well, they don't want to even learn about savings. They want to
Mm,
gamble. And we see the
yeah, yeah.
proliferation of all of these prediction markets. We see it's why crypto in quotes has been so powerful
Mm,
and pernicious is because people they don't want to save wealth slowly. They want to get rich quick.
yeah.
But it's like, boy, maybe you get burned enough times and you finally come around to Bitcoin. I, I, I don't know, but I do agree with that thesis more broadly that yes, once you start learning about the need for savings, why it's important, why you should lower your time preference, how Bitcoin fits into that, so many of these other things naturally follow. You're going to start
Yeah.
learning about how, oh, maybe the causes of the pain that I've been experiencing are not from the things that I thought they were from and that I've been always told that they were from. Maybe
Hmm.
it's from these other forces that have remained hidden to me for some time. But,
Yeah.
one person at a time, right? Like that's why I do this podcast. Cause I hope that like even, one new person tuning in who it makes them think about something a little bit differently, like it can change your life. It can completely
Hmm.
change your life. You can stop being a victim of the capitalist boogeyman and, start being a value creator and a producer. But it does take some time. It takes some time, Alan.
Hmm.
I do want to ask you, you brought up Bitcoin as Venice earlier and what you and Sasha are working on and how this current number go down thesis article is fitting into this larger narrative of what you guys have planned and what you have going right now. Can you explore that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So we're doing a second edition of the book, which will be mostly just revisions. It's not like
Hmm.
version two. It's not like entirely new
Okay.
content. It is a true second edition for the most part. But there will be some new content. We're undecided exactly where we want to fit it all in. But we've been working on this for quite a while, as you can imagine. This was kind of the priority in terms of thinking that we'd sort of identified a gap that we hadn't really covered the first time around, and so we knew where we wanted to slot this in as we were revising it. We also wanted it to work on its own though. So we were quite deliberate about um, releasing it in the way we did, not mentioning Bitcoin, for example. That's partly derivative of where we expect it to go in the book, because we also won't have mentioned Bitcoin by then. But we want it to work as a standalone essay that very similar to what you just commented, right? That hopefully at least one or two people find this or they get sent it or whatever, and ideally it changes their mind. But partly about inflation, partly about economics. But as I alluded to before, because we don't mention Bitcoin, like maybe they then kind of come to Bitcoin on their own without us having to, shove it down their throats. So yeah, so we wanted it to work standalone, and we'll probably do that. I don't want to commit to this because we are on a relatively tight deadline in terms of knowing how much more we want to write. We might do this one more time. We might have one new completely standalone chapter that we release in, maybe a couple of months. But they'll slot in, and then the rest of it will be revised, updated, hopefully just improved. Like I very much think that I very much hope, knowing partly what we've done, partly what we plan to do, that the second edition will be better than the first. I mean, I'm not sure how that relates to like, do I want to encourage people to go buy it again if they already have the first one? Yeah, maybe. I mean, the new stuff will be online, so maybe not. It's up to them. But for noobs, yeah, would very much encourage it. And actually, Bitcoin Magazine have been great about this. There's some stuff I don't want to say now because I don't think they. So Bitcoin Magazine publish it. That's the point of that reference. And we've been chatting to them a lot more recently as we build up to like the plan for how we're going to publish this. Um, there's some things that we are discussing with them that they haven't agreed to yet precisely, so I don't want to say them now, but I think it'll be fine. I think they'll go through it and it'll be really fun what we're able to do. We do know though, like the deadlines that were being set, like the schedule we're working to is that they're going to publish it at the next conference. So Nashville next year is when this will come out. They'll also sunset the first one, so you won't be able to get the first edition anymore. So for noobs,
Ooh.
very much nudging them to get the second one. And then also the interesting thing too, again, I'll kind of dance around this because I don't want to promise things that haven't been fully agreed to yet. But interesting detail that Bitcoin is Venice, the first one, so far the only one. That was the first book that Bitcoin Magazine ever published. And so they're kind of, it almost has like, I don't know, emotional or sentimental value, let's say, to them, in the sense that they're revamping their entire publishing effort. And it's quite exciting how basically how much more of a machine they have to drive this now. Like, not that they did anything wrong last time, just to be completely clear, but it was kind of experimental for all of us, very much me and Sasha included. Whereas this time, all the things that I'm not quite allowed to say yet are like really exciting ways that they're going to help promote it, and hopefully get it to, many more normies than we did the first time around. That's ultimately the goal.